I am the world's biggest super fan.
You're like a super fan.
Welcome to the Business Superfans Podcast. We will discuss how establishing business superfans from customers, employees, and business partners can elevate your success exponentially. Learn why these advocates are a key factor to achieving excellence in the world of commerce. We discuss the invaluable insights of business owners who have successfully implemented the strategies in the book to build their own team of devoted superfans. Gain insightful knowledge from the experts who create applications to help you create passionate superfans. This is the Business Superfans Podcast with your host, Freddy D.
Freddy!
On this episode of the Business Superfans Podcast, today, I've got a powerhouse guest joining me, Pete Moore. With over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience, Pete has mastered the art of turning business frustrations into freedoms. He's a certified exit planning associate, CEPA, a Colby-certified consultant, and the host of the Business Owner Breakthrough podcast. Pete specializes in helping business owners shift from operators to owners, giving them the clarity and strategies they need to build a business that works for them, not the other way around. Through his proven 5 Ps framework, promise, product, process, people, and profit, Pete simplifies the complexities of business ownership, from building thriving teams to preparing for a successful exit. If you're looking for real-world tools and insights to create freedom in your business, you're in for a treat. Pete's here to share his expertise, and trust me, you don't want to miss this conversation. Welcome, Pete, with Simplified Entrepreneurship to the Business Superfans Podcast. We're excited to have you on as a guest, Pete.
Thanks so much for having me, Freddy D. Excited to be here.
Likewise. So tell us, where are you calling in from?
I'm about an hour outside of Toronto. I live in a small town. I'm a small town guy. I like to go to cities, but I don't like to live in them. So I live in a small town called Elora, beautiful, picturesque, river running through it. It's like a postcard at this time of year as we're recording here when the snow's flying and shortly after Christmas. It's just like a Hallmark Christmas card, beautiful, lit up, really nice little town. Yeah, love it here.
Cool. Like we talked before we started recording, I've been to Toronto many, many times. I grew up in Detroit area.
Yeah.
So we used to drive up to Toronto, hang for the weekend, come back.
Mm-hmm.
So spent many, many times up in Toronto. Actually, I was there when the Argonaut team won. This was back in the early 80s. And they blocked off Yonge Street, and everybody was partying on the street. I was there for
CFL
that event.
when the Argonauts won the Grey Cup. Yeah.
I was there.
Awesome.
I was there cheering for them, just being blended in like one of the locals.
Yeah, I love it.
So share with us a little bit about your story of your background, and then how did you come up with Simplified Entrepreneurship for our listeners?
Yeah, long story short, Freddy D. 30 years. I mean, time goes by quick.
Yeah.
You look back and it's like 1994. What? Are you kidding me? 1994. I'm a young kid, finished university, worked for another person for about 6 months, who happens to be my dad's best friend and actually my namesake. I'm named after him. His name was Peter too. And so I was working for him, doing some stuff, setting up some stuff within his business for him that he needs some help with. And then he says to me, Pete, I think you should maybe be your own boss. And I said, yeah, I think so too. So he was one of the guys that really helped me along the way, becoming an entrepreneur. I came from an entrepreneurial family. My dad ran a fairly large construction company. It wasn't his, but he ran it like it was his own. My mom was always doing building crafts and all sorts of different things and selling them at local markets. We came from a farming community. A lot of our relatives are farmers and business owners and retailers and all sorts of stuff. So I grew up in that. It was just part of life within our extended family that a lot of the people within it were business owners. So I bought a franchise, and I bought a bathroom renovation company. It was called at the time Surface Doctor, and the reason I bought it was because I could afford it. It was $9,800 to buy this franchise at the time.
Wow!
And they sold about 300 of them. I was number 20 in 1994. And it just to kind of go through the story of franchise, non-franchise, all this kind of stuff. That franchisor sold their franchise business it went to 3 different franchisors within 5 years. The first guy was really good at getting the concept going and selling that initial batch. The second people weren't really good at it at all. And the third people were the ones that actually ended up closing it down. But just to put it in perspective, I got out as soon as they transferred after that third time. I was like, I'm not going through this anymore. So we had a buyout agreement within our franchise agreement, and I bought it out. And we rebranded it and took all the logos off and everything. And it still continues today, 30 years later. And the fellow, I sold it in 2009. So I had it for 15 years. And then the fellow that bought it from me called me and he says, Pete, you owned it for 15 years. I've owned it for 15 years. It served us both well. And so that business continues on today. We were in about 1,000 bathrooms a year. We refinished bathtubs. We did bathtub liners. We did acrylic wall systems. We did refacing of kitchens, all sorts of different things. But at the same time, I also owned another franchise, which was a cleaning company that we bought from one of the franchisors that had owned the other one. They also had another franchise. And my local guy was suffering really quite badly at the time in Ottawa, Ontario. And we bought it. It had 30 clients and we built it to 300 and we sold it. I became a business broker helping people buy and sell businesses, which is how I still own a couple of stores right now. At the time in 2010, we bought a store called Shoetopia. We sell shoes. And we've bought another one. We moved it. We closed it. We opened another one. So we still own 2 shoe stores here in Canada. And that's sort of my, let's say, background business. And I spend most of my time these days working with simplifying entrepreneurship, which is how I got to this, because my sort of philosophy around business is that you shouldn't have to open the door every day. You shouldn't have to make every decision. You shouldn't have to hire every person. You shouldn't have to do every purchase order. And I've lived that all along, or else I couldn't have 2 different businesses going and all this kind of stuff along my way, because I've always usually had more than one business on the go. Now I coach to that. And a big part of what I do is what we call moving people from owner to operator, or from operator to owner, so that if you want to work in your business by all means. But if you don't want to work in your business, you should have your business where you're actually doing the things that, 1, you're the best at doing, 2, that you actually want to do, because that's what you're allowed to do what you want to do in your business. If you're the business owner, you should structure it out so you're not doing the worst things that don't align with what you love to do. You should be doing the things that really do align with what you want to do and what you're best at, because there's other people that are good at those things that you're not best at.
Right. Very important what you just described there, because a lot of small businesses, and I've been around the world. I used to be in charge of global sales and marketing for a couple software companies and took their products from 0 to millions globally, set up independent resellers around the world. And there's an art to that, because they're independent. So they're handling multitude of products. So, they've got the 12 watches on their arm. How do you get mindset with somebody in another country that's an independent, doesn't work for you, but is an independent rep, and then has a team of their own to get mind share? So it's all about really empowering the people in those teams. So you bring up a great point there, Pete, because a lot of people get caught up in working in their business and really never get out of working in their business. And I really call that a glorified job. They're in the business, and if they get hit by a bus, the business is over. And that sounds like that's some of the things that you help people get themselves out of their own way.
Yeah, for sure. One of my other hats, Freddy D, is that I'm a certified exit planner. So where I used to be a business broker helping people buy and sell businesses, I'm not licensed with that anymore. I gave that up a few years back. But what I do now with this being a certified exit planner is that I help people get their business ready for sale. But the interesting piece of that is that getting your business ready for sale is also the same process as moving from operator to owner. Because the thing with it is building the value of your business, you need to have what I call the 6 Ps in place: your promise in place, your product, your process, and your people aligned to that promise. And then you're going to promote it. And then you have the right amount of profit. And it takes time to get all that stuff in alignment. And it takes time to have all of that stuff work for you in your business. But if you're not thinking about those 6 Ps all the time, then it's a really hard thing to move into that ownership position. And the beauty of it is When you do have things where you're literally working in the business in the areas that you love to work in the business and you're not necessarily needed in the business, that's when it's most valuable. And that's when you have the best opportunity to have multiple offers or any of these other things. Or for a lot of the work that I do is transitioning to their kids in family transition of next generation. It's, do you want to hand this over running on all 8 cylinders or 6 cylinders, whatever your 4 cylinders, whatever your car is? Or do you want to have that running so-so and hand off something that isn't good to your kids? It's the same thing when you're looking at building the value of your business, because it's one thing to build top line revenue. It's another thing to build value, because when it comes time to exit, and you will exit your business one day, that's a guarantee. You will exit your business one day. So exit planning is something you should be doing all the time, not just at the end of when you're ready to exit. Because here's the other thing, Freddie D. You probably know some people that have had this happen, because business owners tend to hang out with business owners. Maybe somebody died prematurely and their business wasn't ready to go. And they left everything to their family and they had to fire sale it or whatever the case was. The other thing is divorce. With 1 in 2 people divorcing these days, divorce can cause the downfall of a business, because sometimes you even need to sell the business just to pay out your other half.
Right.
Disability.
Yep.
You probably know someone that's got in a car accident that's been laid up for 3 months or 6 months, or maybe cancer took you out of the business for a year. What happened to the business during that time? If you're the person that opens the door, hires every person, goes to the bank every week, does all that stuff, and it's you, how much of the value of your business, even if you've done it for 20 years, got eroded over that point in time where you couldn't go to work? That's if you couldn't. What if you want to take a holiday taking a holiday for a week? Okay, but taking a holiday for a month or 2 months or 3 months, can you do that? Those are good questions to ask yourself, because if it's not at that level, it's not at the maximum value, and it's not able for you to transition it so that you're leaving the legacy that you want to leave with those dollars. Because not everybody's getting rid of their business these days just because they're ready to retire, especially the now generation. The now generation saying, I want to do this for 7 to 10 years, and then I want to take that capital and plunk it somewhere else and take another run, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people that were the baby boomers and stuff, it's like, this is my business. I've done it for 50 years. That's not as much the case anymore. Now people are moving on to their next business, as opposed to just keeping their business and growing their business until they're ready to exit at whatever time that is.
Yeah. So let's go back to where you're talking about the P's.
Yeah.
Because this happened, and I'm going to share the story.
Sure.
Recently, I came in to help an interpreting and translation company in their sales. I helped improve their sales. It was a husband and wife team. They started it 30 years ago. They built it to a certain level.
Sure.
And it was a lifestyle business, okay? They would take a month off and go travel the world and stuff like that. They wanted to take it to another level because they didn't have the skill set. You've probably run into many business owners that they take it so high, and then that's as far as they can
Reach
go.
the ceiling.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I helped them with the sales, and they were not really strong in handling RFPs and stuff like that. That's one of my strengths. Got some large accounts. And then next thing you know, I'm helping them with operations. So we got the sales going, and then all of a sudden we're having operations. They didn't have any systems in place. It was old school. They weren't using technology. They didn't have a CRM. They were using file folders. Yes. So I implemented all those tools and helped get them in place. They were like, this is really going good. We would really like to have you maybe run the business, and we'll step aside and you be the general manager. So that was the plan in mid-December 2022. Unexpectedly, he passed away. I had spoken to him in the morning, and that night he was gone. So it was weird. I officially became the general manager unexpectedly. I turned that company around and grew them by $1 million in a year. But we had systems in place. More importantly, what I did was I made sure that every team member was on the same page. Mm-hmm. So we were in the same racing rowboat with the 4 of us in line, but we got the oars in sync. Yeah. And we had a goal. We had Monday morning meetings. Everybody was on the same page. And I created some super fans out of the team, which are still friends today, position it for acquisition. And it was acquired last year,
And then I hung around to help the transition, and then it was done. They were fortunate they had a guy with my skill set that was able to do what you just talked about. Not everybody company is in that position. And that's a problem if something like that happens. They don't have a Freddy D that can step in, or a Pete that can step in and take it over and not miss a beat and actually scale it and position it for growth.
And that's why I say that middle alignment, right? The promise is part of your guiding principles. Your guiding principles, your mission, your vision, and your promise. Mission and vision are internally facing. Promise is externally. It's what you're promising your customers, because people will only buy a better life, right? So the promise really is around this idea of what's their pain, how are you positioning yourself in between their pain and where they want to be so that you can take them to the better life. That's where the dollars happen, right? Mm-hmm. And when the dollars happen, there needs to be the alignment of the process, the product or service, if you're a service-based business, and the people. The people are broken down into three. One is your ideal customer, and I'm sure everybody gets that listening to the show. Two is your ideal teammate. And three is your ideal outsourced supplier that also helps you deliver your promise. So any of those other suppliers that are part of your promise delivery, so that you can then promote it and get the profit. And that's the operational structure. Every meeting's based on those. Everything for the generation of the business and the continuance of the business are based on those. And then I've got an overarching theme that sits on top of that from the leadership perspective that you had mentioned earlier. And that's called the CMA. And the CMA is really, as a leader, your job is to hone your communication skills, your management skills, and your accountability skills.
Important, very important what you bring up there, because go back to the interpreting company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you talk about suppliers. The suppliers were the independent contract interpreters. They were not employees. They were independent contractors. And the mindset from the company beforehand was these guys should be thankful we're giving them work. My mindset was, no, you should be thankful that he speaks or she speaks that particular language, because otherwise you can't fulfill the project that this particular hospital needs. Exactly. So we created a newsletter to edify all the independent contract interpreters. So once a month, I would pick someone who went above and beyond and made them feel important, special, and recognized them for their birthdays and all that stuff. And the interpreters started to come into the office and felt welcomed, and just completely changed the whole dynamics of the internal culture of the company, which is what you just mentioned. In a sense, that culture in that company has got to be on the same page, because if people are unhappy with their workplace, you and I know this, that tonality to a prospective customer is going to come across. Can't hide it. It's impossible. They're going to sense something. They're going to get that feeling, I'm not sure I'm going to go with these guys. I'm going to go someplace else. Whereas someone answers a phone and says, hey, Pete, glad you called. We're super excited to talk to you. You're going to go, wow, this place has got energy. It's those little things are really become the big things.
They do. There's so much to unpack there culture-wise. But one of the key things with that CMA structure that I mentioned, that communication management accountability, is that you as the leader, because it's mostly leaders listening to this show, you got to own that, because that's where everything comes down the accountability chart from you. And that's why we need to have the promise, and we need to shout it out loud. We need to have those slogans. We need to have everything in alignment. We need to hire the right people. We need to have the right clients, not just any client. We need to have the right outsourced partners that are believing in our promise. If they don't even know what our promise is, and you're just saying, hey, I need another interpreter, let's fire them on, let's go. Like, how can they deliver the promise that we're promising our clients on behalf of us if there isn't a process in place to tell them what that is and background checks to make sure they're in alignment?
Totally agree. So, Pete, share a story of how you worked with a business owner and helped them go from being an operator to actually a business owner, is what you and I would define.
There's a lot of them, but one of the ones, and some of my clients, I just help them through different areas, like you said, breaking that ceiling to get them through a certain area for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever the case is. But one of the fellows I've been working with now for maybe 3-4 years, and on an ongoing basis as we continue to do monthlies and quarterlies and making sure everything's in rhythm, he's got this awesome business. And I won't go into it for non-disclosure reasons, but he has a retail business, which is an online retail business, but he also has a manufacturing business in India. He lives in the States, and he has 25 people manufacturing musical instruments in India. And he only goes to India and he started this whole thing right during COVID. And he couldn't get over to the factory. He had partners. They were setting up communication. They're setting up accountability. They're adding on space. They're getting CNC machines in there, all this stuff. And it's all being done from over here for the most part. He got over a few times since, but even now with a lot freer travel, he only goes about once a year. And he runs the side of this business on the retail. And one of the things I've helped him with along the way is wholesale too. He knew nothing about wholesale. So we built a wholesale network around the world. And he just said to me the other day, I just got 2 huge orders that will occupy the plant for the next 3 months. We're going to need to expand again. When we first met, this is just before COVID, because we just started working when he was adding this whole division. And he said, I'm going to need some help working through some of this stuff. He hadn't taken a vacation in 10 years. He'd taken vacation because they homeschool and stuff like that. But his vacation was more like, okay, well, I'm working from a different location today. And that may resonate with a lot of business owners listening here today too.
Sure.
Does your vacation involve you working from another location? Or is your vacation
checking email, making sure, going on Slack or Teams and communicating, and you're not on vacation?
No, you're not. I'm taking a month off away from our home office here soon, but my intention is I will be working certain parts of that because I just don't want to be here. We live in the cold and we're going to go somewhere warm for a month. But part of that, like 3/4 of it, is going to be vacation where I have no contact really at all with my team. And about a third, 25 or a third of it's going to be some appointments that I have scheduled that I'm okay with. So I'm doing a bit of both there. But the idea is if you're always on your phone when you're away with your family, that's no vacation. And believe me, your family see that too, right? They know you're not there on vacation with them just because you happen to be in Arizona or Florida or Tahiti or wherever you're going for your vacation.
It affects the family life.
For sure. And they did have their business set up so they could homeschool, and they got 4 kids and they wanted to do all that stuff. And that's great. But he was still finding himself, anytime they went and did anything, he's always tied to his phone. He's still answering customer calls. He's still answering all these other things. So we freed him up from that right off the bat. Like the first vacation he took, maybe 3 months in, was a week away without his phone. He had his phone, but without contact to...
There must have been some major withdrawals taking place there.
You know, that was a huge win. A huge win. And I think things like that, I want everybody to think, if you actually own the business, reel it back a little bit to when you first either started your business or bought your business. Because you probably had these ideas of, I'll have a little bit more freedom. I'll have a little bit more money. Life will be better than when I currently am, whether it's a corporate job or whether it's any of these other things that you were doing prior to the business that you now own. If you don't feel the way you thought you were going to feel when you took that business over, then you got some work to do. This is the kind of stuff when we start moving from operator to owner. One of the things here, Freddy D, is that we get habitualized into making all these decisions because we had to. Cash was tight. We're watching the dollars. We're doing all this stuff. We're going to make our own decisions. We're going to watch all these things. We want to know the business. Maybe we don't know the business as well as we think we do. So think we need to be in the weeds with everything, all of that sort of stuff. But when you do that for 1, 2, or 3 years, which is a normal sort of startup period, now I'm habitualized into doing that. And it's hard for me to actually let go of these things.
Yeah, I worked with, and I stopped working with them. It was a commercial flooring company.
Yeah.
And the guy had been in business for 30 some years, family run business. I got connected because when I was doing the interpreting company, I had a business coach that was helping me brainstorm, sound off, blow off my frustrations with idiotic stuff and whatnot. And so the same coach connected me with this guy could really use some help. Unfortunately, this person was so entrenched in the way they were doing things. They felt that they were losing control because I was implementing systems and technology. They were doing file folders, and actually 24. In 6 weeks, I had $1.1 million worth of commercial flooring bidding opportunities. I ended up saying, this isn't going to work. Sometimes you have to fire a customer because it's not aligning with your beliefs, your system, your culture, and it's actually going to suck you down versus empower you.
Yeah. And you know what? There's another coach out there for that person that's going to fit them better than us. And that's part of understanding your promise. That I help people develop their promises and go through all those the 5 P's and get to profit for the 6th. That's part of the process, but we have to have it for ourselves too. We have to be in alignment. That wasn't an ideal customer.
No.
So
No.
it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the system. So
Right.
from those kind of perspectives, that's part of this onboarding process. And whether we're onboarding a new employee, as you said, for the right people fit, when getting the right people with the right culture, I've got another thing called the candidate evaluation, which goes through, do they have the capacity to do the work? Do they have the capability to do the work? Do they have the confidence to do the work? And are they the right cultural fit? And so once we get all of those 4 pieces, it's like, are we going to hire this person now? It's part of Kolbe too. I'm a certified Kolbe coach, and I work through a whole bunch of things around Kolbe for that to get the right fit for people. It costs so much money to get that people person right. And if you hire wrong, you're back in the boards and you're 6 months down.
The amount of money that you waste on hiring the wrong person and then losing that person is astronomical. With this interpreting company, they were having people quit 90 days. They didn't hire the person to fit the culture. They got the cheapest person. They would come in, they would train them verbally, and then the following week when they would go live, they would get chastised for a mistake. Not in private, publicly. You can take 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, and after that, I'm out of this place.
Exactly.
And that's what was happening, a revolving door. So
And
very,
so-
very important.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the 6 P's, right? Getting that people port, because it could happen the same with those outsourced suppliers. It could happen the same with your teammate. It could happen the same with your customers. All of them can cost you severe amounts of money if you're aligning with the wrong person, right? Same with
Right.
the products. If you're aligning with the wrong products or service and they don't match your promise, and your promise isn't in alignment with that, people are expecting something differently than you're giving them, that's going to affect your profit. All of these things have to happen, have to be in alignment. And here's another thing. For those people that have been at it for 10, 15, 20, 50 years sometimes, what you used to do and what you've always done maybe isn't the way it needs to be done anymore. Sometimes
Things change.
could change.
You got to adapt.
Yep.
You know, the ball changes, the direction changes, and the wind changes. I have a good friend of mine that is a retired airline pilot, and he said, which stuck with me, was that when you're going from Phoenix to Hawaii, that plane is always constantly readjusting its direction, because if you didn't do that, the wind would blow it way off course and you would never arrive to your original destination. So you've always got to be tweaking, adjusting, everything else. So very good advice that you're sharing with the audience and business owners is, yeah, you've been doing something for 10 years that way. Guess what? It's probably not the best way today.
Yeah. You know, you said a lot of the work that you've done is setting up process, and I do the same thing. I set up a lot of process and help people set up process. But one thing I know is that there are no perfect processes.
Correct.
And we're also always trying to perfect them. So although there are no perfect processes, we're always trying to perfect our process. And that's this idea of steady and never-ending improvement. And it's something that we need to be looking at as leaders all the time. It's one of the laws in my 10 Laws little ebook, is this idea that we always need to be rolling through steady and never-ending improvement and working towards betterment in our business, and not always accepting the way it was done for the last 10 years is the way. And maybe it is still the right way to do it, and that's okay. But at least we need to have these sort of stepping back and looking at it and saying, is this still the right way? Because if it is, great. But if it isn't, we need to do some work here.
Yeah, because things change, and then you wonder why your competitors all of a sudden ahead of you, and you're going, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. What happened? Well, they've tweaked, they pivoted.
Yeah.
You didn't.
When was the last time you put a VHS tape into the VHS machine to watch a movie?
Don't remember.
Yeah, 30 years ago, right?
I still
Things
have
change,
some.
right?
I don't have the
But
machine anymore, but I still have them.
there you go. But for the time, Blockbuster was they were the deal, right? So, and all of these things, and I use that because those of us of our vintage at least remember VHS machines and beta, but
Yeah.
things do change. And as leaders, one of our gigs is that we need to be always searching for the next thing in our industries, whatever that industry is. It's like, where is this going and where do we think it's going, and staying on top of that, because as much as we're asking our team to do all this stuff for us every day and they're mired down in the day-to-day operations. If we can elevate out of that, now we got to spend some time really seeing where the next best thing is within our industry so we can be the leaders in those and not the late adapters. Because when that's the case, we're already behind the ball and we've lost opportunity for that profit segment. And it's not like we can't fire something in after it's 5 years into adoption, but
you're playing catch up. Just like with that flooring company, they're wondering why they're not growing and getting business. And yet there's $159 billion worth of commercial construction going on in Arizona right now, with all the data centers and everything else. But you can't compete when you're not using technology and not leveraging technology where everybody else is.
That's another one of my laws is you got to at least accept technology. And I'll use another example from that, because even from people that like massage therapy or physio or all these things, people that they're still calling and saying, hey, can I have an appointment next Tuesday morning? No, I don't have an appointment Tuesday, but you can come in on Friday and all this kind of stuff. People that haven't adapted to having like online ordering where I can just book my own schedule and I'll come in and I'll be there. All of these different things have made life easier, because even from a Calendly perspective or TidyCal or all these different things that help you schedule, do you want to have 5 or 10 back and forth? Yeah, I can do Tuesday at 2. No, I can't choose to, like all these back and forths. Average of 7 to 10, I think it is, times you're back and forth. Or do you want to just click a link, look at my calendar, look at your availability and say, I'll take Tuesday at 10. But people still want to use the manila folders. People still want to pick up the phone and do that stuff. But here's the thing, people are bypassing you that are using some of these technologies. And as leaders, we need to at least know they're out there. And we need to look and research and ask our team to research if we don't feel comfortable about it, but research these things, because you may really be missing some key infrastructure that's going to help take your business to the next 25 years of joy and glory.
Sure, absolutely. I started in the beginning of the software industry. 1980. So I'm a pioneer in that area in a sense.
Well, you still got more hair than me, man.
I started as an applications guy and then went into sales. But I'm a firm believer that you've always got to look at technology, because there's always something new, better. If you aren't aware of what's out there, you may not necessarily need to replace anything. You may say, okay, what we've got is working fine for what we've got. But then there's times where you go, you know what? Wait a minute. I'm getting way more value in this other platform. It's going to save this much time. Out with the old and in with the new. You've got to be able to pivot from that perspective, because your competitor may be doing so. And then they've got some automation tools put into place where it's got instant chat, you're leveraging AI. So it's creating a conversation, even though you may think you're actually talking to somebody, you're really talking to an AI robot that's programmed to have an intelligent conversation with you.
For sure.
And you don't have that and your competitor does, you're toast. Because just like you just said, I can come in and reach out, get some answers. Okay, yeah. And then the thing says, when do you want to schedule? Boom, it's done. You're outside looking in.
You have to be available when they want to find the information and they want to schedule the appointment, not just between 8 and 5. You've got to be available for when they want your services.
We just talked about that before we started the show. You went to the dentist at 7 o'clock this morning.
That's
I
it.
think it was dentist or doctor at 7 o'clock this morning. So they pivoted to be able to accommodate you as a customer. And that's a game changer, because your day can go on. They're able to service several customers in that window.
It's it.
So they're scaling their business because of the fact that they're accommodating the market for today.
I think going back to this earlier conversation, which is we get habitualized into doing things the way we've done them for a while. And whether it's scheduling, it's like, no, we don't open Saturdays or Sundays, or we don't open late at night, or we don't have a website, which there's still some businesses out there that don't have a website. Like stuff like this. It's like, no. If you want to carry on your business, if you want to build value in your business, because as we said earlier, you will exit your business one day. And what does that mean for most small business owners? It's their most valuable possession that they have. more so
Right.
than their house in a lot of cases. If they do have stocks and bonds and everything, they can pull up the reports like, okay, I got 200,000 in this and 100,000 in that and $1 million in this or whatever in my house. I can get a rough idea of what my house is worth. Oh yeah, the neighbor sold for 500,000. I should be able to get 500 plus or minus, that kind of stuff. But your business, where are you getting the valuation of your business and how do you know how much your business is worth? Well, I can tell you one thing. It doesn't come from the golf course, from your buddies that you golf with every Thursday afternoon in men's league.
Right.
Just because somebody sold their business for $1 million doesn't mean you're getting $1 million, even if it's in the same industry.
Correct.
So your biggest, or one of your biggest things in the portfolio that you have at least, and you don't even know the value of it, really, or a range of value. That's one of the things that I work with a lot of my clients on, is building range of value, so at least they know. And if they don't like the number they get, then they got to do some work to get it where they need it to be.
And that's where you can come in, is you can help them with the work that they need to do to get there.
Or you know, like Freddy D, this is what we do, right? It's like,
Right.
but you need to have the benchmark. And the benchmark is like, oh, you mean my business is only worth 300,000? I thought it was like $1 million. Well, I'm not saying it's worth 300, but probably between 3 and 4. But I need $1 million in order to do what I want to do next, to buy this next business, to
Well,
retire.
we got work to
what-
do.
So then we need to build it from give or take 300,000 or 400,000 to $1 million over X amount of time. And this is the plan.
Right.
Because if you leave it till the end,
A little
too
too late.
because now I'm thinking all along for the last 10 years, I'm going to get $1 million for this thing, and I'm actually going to get 300,000. Well, that changes my life after, doesn't it?
So as we wrap up here, Pete, give me some like takeaways that business owners could really, bullet points that they can really resonate with, that will drive home the importance of transitioning from working in the weeds to working on the business.
You know, I think the big things to take away here is if you think of those things we've talked about throughout the episode. One, what is your promise? And is it still relevant? Just because you've had that promise for many years, is it still resonant to your clients? Two, are your product, your process, and your people actually aligned with that promise, or is there some misalignment there? Do you need to do some work and maybe bring in some new products or services, or maybe get rid of some ones that are legacy products and services that just aren't making it anymore? Process. If everything is in your head and things cannot happen without you in your seat at work, or at least available by phone, like we talked about with that one client I had, then you got some work to do on process, in aligning and assigning the accountability to others. Because here's the next piece of process. It's one thing to have the process written and on video, on audio, and checklists, all that kind of stuff. It's another thing to actually turn it over to somebody else. That's the
Empower.
accountability, right? People, we talked about this. Are they the right customers? And if they aren't, you got some work to do. You might have to fire some. What about your team? Are they aligned with your culture? Are they capable? Do they have the capacity to grow? Are they confident in what they do and delivering your promise that's shouted out to the world? Promotion. Are you getting your communication and message out of that promise, and how you can take people from where they are through your services to where they want to be, because that's how the dollars happen, so that you can have the right amount of profit. When you have the right amount of profit, it isn't just about profit, it's about multiple when you do want to get to the end. And the multiple is about being able to show you're going to get more multiple, because it's one thing if you make $100,000 and you get a 1 times multiple, that's $100,000. Or if you get 0 multiple because you don't have your business set up, that's still 0, right? But if you can get 3 or 4 or whatever. Now we're talking multiples. How do we build multiples? We build multiples by having these systems in place, by having the right people in place, by having the right customers, by being able to prove and document things, so that when the new owner looks at this thing and says, is this something I want to do? And do I need the existing owner to take it to the next level, or can I replicate this? And you're basically saying, hey, I don't even need to go to work. I was gone for a month last year and my business actually grew. If that's the case now, as an outsider, and think of this too, even if you're not looking to sell your business, think of it from a bank position. If you need to go and acquire money to grow that next thing and put a 30,000 square foot addition on, or whatever the case is, and you're showing them this and you're saying like, stuff happens without me. That's risk that's been looked after, right? Because the banker's looking at this saying, what happens if I lose the kingpin here?
Yep.
So profit is interesting, But multiples are even more interesting as we look to build value. So where are you going to build value? And how are you going to work this year on your communication, your management skills, and your accountability? Because things need to be transferred to someone else in order to free your time up so that you can do what you want to inside your business and outside of your business as the business owner. You deserve it.
Thanks, Sir Richard Branson. You don't see him gassing up the airplane or making sure that the Virgin Voyages is all set to go on its next voyage. He's out on his island. He's out entertaining. He's playing flight attendant. He's playing guest on his ship because he's empowered his team to do what needs to be done, and he's got the right team in place. So great nuggets and great insight there, Pete, for our listeners. How can people find you?
Best way is just to go over to my website at pete-mohr.com. So pete-mohr.com. And I've got a host of other sites that are inside there that, depending on what area of business you're interested in, you can click on those and dig into more information.
Okay. And you have something for our audience. I think you mentioned something.
We've talked a little bit about the journey from operator to owner today, and I've got a download, which is a little ebook, a little PDF ebook around the 10 laws of moving from operator to owner, some of which we've talked about today. And you can find that at simplifyingentrepreneurship.com/laws, LAWS.
Great, Pete. It's been a pleasure having you on a Business Superfans podcast. Great conversation. We could probably go on for a couple hours here. So I look forward to having you on a show down the road. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Freddy D. It's been a blast.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Business Superfans podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who could use these powerful insights to level up their business. Remember, creating Business Superfans isn't just about your customers. It's about fostering genuine, impactful connections across your entire business ecosystem. When you invest in those relationships, success doesn't just happen, it accelerates. Until next time, I'm your host, Freddy D. Let's keep building superfans, creating unstoppable momentum, and driving your business toward extraordinary success. See you in the next episode.
We hope you took away some useful knowledge from today's episode of the Business Superfans podcast. The path to success relies on taking action. So go over to businesssuperfans.com and get your hands on the book if you haven't already. Join the Accelerator community and take that first step in generating a team of passionate supporters for your business. Join us on the next episode as we continue guiding you on your journey to achieve flourishing success in business.